Hello and welcome to Chess with Simon. I'm Simon. Today we're going to cover a game by my friend Nick Burrows. He's playing the white pieces. It's a beautiful game and it contains a very difficult move which I was not able to find when he asked me on WhatsApp. Nick plays, and so let's see if you can find it. Let's see if you can outplay me. Shouldn't be too difficult. Nick plays c4. It's a great way to open a chess game. English opening, very positionally sound, not committing too much, not committing to the centre yet. Black plays knight f6. Nick plays g3, again sort of positional and restrained. g6 from black. So black is basically a kind of King's Indian type player. Both players fianchetto. Black goes on to play d6, which is the King's Indian. And now with d4, Nick's actually transposed into the white side of a King's Indian. Black castles, white castles. Knight bd7 is standard, although you can also play knight c6 in this position. But that kind of invites d5, which has its own complexities. Knight bd7. White naturally develops the knight. E5 here is a standard form of activity for black. I mean, c5 is the other one, but e5 is a very sensible move. e4 from white. I mean, this is what the engine actually wants to do. I don't like this move because it blocks in the king's bishop, and also because I lost a very painful game to Graham in our chess club. Hello, Graham, in this line. I made a video about a different game that I lost painfully to Graham, but losing as white is always a particular pleasure. So anyway, e4 is a good move, according to the engine, and we all believe the engines. This is not so good. So this is thematic in the King's Indian, knight h5, but before the centre is locked, and with white having that fianchetto on the king's side, which is a very strong defensive structure, probably a little bit much. Bishop e3 is a good move, and this is definitely a bit much, and the engine agrees. So again, f5 is very typical of the King's Indian, but I think black has to wait till the centre is locked before carrying out this kind of manoeuvre. Nick exploits it beautifully, exchanging the pawns, basically liquidating the centre. And all of a sudden, black's king looks drafty, and without the centre locked, black doesn't have the sort of typical attacking chances that you get with the King's Indian. So basically, white's just winning a pawn here, because that pawn on h5 hangs after white takes on e5. The knight on h5 just hangs. Bishop e6 is a sensible move from black, just hitting the c4 pawn. But then white can hit the queen on the open file with the rook, so white's starting to get good control of the centre. White's picking up another pawn, but what's interesting here is, and this is quite typical of the King's Indian, black's going to pick up some really dynamic counter chances. So again, Nick plays the engine move here. He's a really good player. So puts his bishop on d5, which is ever such a strong square, isn't it? Defended by so many other pieces. But now black has picked up the pawn on b2, and actually that knight on c3 looks seriously insecure. This isn't the most accurate, this rook move here. And actually also black doesn't play the most accurate. So what should have black have played? Black should have taken on d5 and then played queen e8. Okay, let's not get bogged down in that. Engines are so clever. Black plays this move, but the place I wanted to get to, which is kind of pretty, is this amazing move by white. Bishop c1. Now it's amazing because it uncovers an attack on the queen and it also hits the rook. That's really useful. That looks like a winning move. Unfortunately, black now has queen b6. Don't look at the engine. Black now has queen... Let's switch the engine off. Has queen b6. You didn't look at it, did you? It has queen b6. It's a typical problem with engines. It's just like so tempting all the time. And you've got to say, think for yourself. Okay. And also, don't look at the moves in the future. I'm holding my hand over it, but it doesn't work on the internet. Okay. The thing is, black has queen b6. This is a beautiful move because it hits h2. h2 is attacked 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So Nick said to me, well, how do you defend this? So I was looking at moves like rook f1, very pedestrian. The problem is that f2 is still hit 3 times. And I think, you know, bishop e3, knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes, check. I think that's probably going to come out as a draw. Come on, we can look at it. But The question I'm going to ask you is, what does white play here to win? Or the only moves I could find were drawing moves. There is a win for white, and it's a beautiful move, which reminds us what a great game chess is. Nick found it in a blitz game, which is absolutely like kudos to him. So we're gonna you can pause the video now and think of it, or you can just maybe you just see it, or you can tell me in the comments if you saw it. But we put the engine back on. So the only move that basically works here for white is pawn c5, which is magnificent. So now there's no point in black taking on f2 because the queen will just be lost. The natural move for the queen is just to take the pawn, but now white has the super strong move, knight e4. Now this would not have worked with the queen on b6 because black just takes it. But now the knight is hitting the queen, which is really handy. It's defending f2, which is really handy, and now the f pawn is pinned against the queen, so the f pawn can't take the knight. So this is just like a super move, really. Combines so many tactics. Queen backs off, but now it's all too late. White has the extra tempo that he needs. So white's taken out that rook on b2. Now that pawn is attacked twice and defended twice. It's absolutely fine. And worse than that, I mean, black can take here, but white hits the queen. Black goes back here, and now, after white defends the knight with the rook, black can't take on e4 because now the g4 knight drops as well. So basically now white is up an exchange, probably a bit more. No, just an exchange. White's up an exchange, but also white has a great. I mean, black's king's very open. Black's king is much more unsafe. So white can attack h7. h6 is a natural move. Then there's a fork here. Doesn't look too bad. Well, black comes back and hits the queen, but now queen g6 steps out of the attack and also attacks the bishop on g7, pins it. So black has to play rook f7, but white can exchange that, pick up the extra knight. So now that's a whole rook, and black, as a really strong player, realised that that was the end and resigned. So congratulations to Nick. Thank you so much for sending me your game, Nick. Other people, please send me your games. It's always good to see, and I hope everyone's enjoying their chess.